Sibling loss is forgotten loss. The death of a brother or sister is often overshadowed by other relationships that the person who died have. When we're younger persons, oftentimes it's the parents who everybody asks about. As adults, it's somebody else, the deceased person's partner or spouse, maybe children. All of this is what Dr. Kendoka calls disenfranchised grief. He titles it or defines it as a loss that is not recognized or validated by others. That disenfranchisement can put a lot of layers of grief and the impact from that grief on us, that we as bereaved siblings, we get to struggle with. And it can be tough sometimes. I want to thank you for joining with this edition of Understanding Grief, Sibling Loss. I invite you to use the chat box. Reach out to us with questions you may have, comments. I'm going to ask a few questions a little bit later, and you can put what your answers in that, or your comments about it. You also put the name of the sibling that you are remembering, the one who died, the one whose loss you're feeling so immediately this time. What we'll do is we'll create a memorial here of their names and of this experience together by naming them and by being together in this event. So thank you. Thank you for being a part. So what we want to do is to separate out those layers, because if we can get a look at what's happening with us, with us and what the experience is and all, then maybe that will help us to be able to adjust a little bit better and to respond a little bit better. At least that's what I believe. I think it's really important to be able to do that. Some of these things that we talk about may fit you. They may be part of your story. They may be part of something that feels like right to you or normal or natural, and some of them may not. That's the beauty and the curse of grief in general. It's very particular. It's the beauty because it's yours and it's not anyone else's. And so your grief is yours. It's also very difficult and kind of a curse because it is yours and not anyone else's. And so what's going on is going on with you. And sometimes that can really make us feel very strange, because we often ask ourselves if we're doing it right. Well, put that aside, because there really isn't a right or wrong grief way to do grief. It's just really how you're managing it, and as long as you're engaging with it and being a part of it. So embrace, if you will, that weirdness that maybe you might be feeling. All right. So what's one layer? What's one layer that we might talk about? Well, sibling loss, as I said, is disenfranchised. And let's start there. It's a loss that is not recognized or validated by other people. So when we're younger and maybe our brother or sister died, people oftentimes come to the kids and ask, how are the parents doing? And then they forget to ask the children, how are you doing? You've lost a sibling. You've lost somebody that's really important to you, and that doesn't fit right. But people forget that. They're looking beyond you. They're looking almost past you and through you to your parents. And because oftentimes the people that are saying that are parents themselves, and they're trying to get a sense for themselves of what it is that they might be feeling through what somebody else's experience is. And that leaves you out in cold. And that's something that you'll have to struggle with as you grow up and go through your different developmental stages and things. So you get disenfranchised there. As adults, maybe it is the deceased partner or spouse of our sibling that everybody's asking about and concerned about and wanting to know about. Maybe it's our nieces and nephews, the children People are going up to them and asking, maybe they're asking you, well, how are the kids? How's the family? Maybe they're even looking back a generation and how are your parents doing? And that again leaves us shuttered and left out. You know, for my own self, I have to, if you will, sort of confess here. When my aunt died, I asked my dad about all of her family. How were they doing? I didn't ask my dad how it was he was feeling, what he was going through. And that's something I regret, something I missed out on. But it's just a common kind of thing because we are thinking past and through them to the immediate family. And sometimes it's we ourselves who leave us out of that. Sometimes we feel almost guilty, like, we're not as important as the immediate family with that. We're not as important in our grief as the sibling or the spouse or the partner or the children that are there, or our parents, and we can say to ourselves, is it right that I feel this way? Is it right that I should be struggling like this? Because it's not, they're just a brother or sister. It's a pretty common kind of thing, but it's got to be dealt with. One of the other reasons that this is a forgotten, if you will, bereavement is because there's not much research or study that's been done on it. Most of the knowledge that we have about sibling loss comes from other kinds of losses and everything, and we pull out of those what we think is kind of general and place it into siblings. We have forgotten as thanatologists, those people that do the research and ask the questions and all, we've forgotten to look into that as well. It's catching up. We're doing better because we've recognized the gap that's in there, but we really don't know about the experiences full on of siblings, not like we do with, children or with, widows or widowers, other things like that, grandparents and parents. We know a lot more about that. What might that experience be of being disenfranchised? I wanted to lift this up to you so that maybe you can recognize when it's happening to you. Because again, that becomes important. It becomes important to figure out why it is that we're feeling sort of lost or left out or just not right with this stuff. Well, I'm going to go back to Ken Doka again, who's the one that came up with this idea. And one of the things he says is that people avoid contact with us. You're finding that the folks that you expected to be there when you needed some support aren't there. Maybe people are just not reaching out and connecting with you the same way they did. Maybe what they're doing is discouraging you from expressing your feelings or communicating what's going on. You ever heard anything like this? Oh, don't feel like that. You have no need to feel that way. Just, be glad that you had them, or, other kinds of really sort of strange, almost, insensitive kind of comments that can be really leaving us just feeling shuttered. Again, that's the word that comes to mind. We're kind of closed off with that. Maybe we're getting unsolicited advice. Well, you really ought to get out. You ought to just get out. You're acting strange and you're not doing as well as, I think you should. And so, come on, I'm going to take you out to dinner, or we're going to go do this, or maybe just go get a vacation, or stay busy and things. Those kinds of unsolicited advice that people can give to us when we're bereaved can be really disenfranchising for us. And again, making those rude and insensitive comments. Learned from a friend of mine that any comment that begins with "at least" is a rude and insensitive comment. At least they're not suffering, at least they're in heaven, or at least they're not, they didn't suffer long, or whatever it may be. Those kinds of statements can be really, really off-putting and, again, disenfranchising. They keep us from being able to feel supported and also to express our grief. have it recognized with that. All right, that's one layer that's possibly there for you. Another thing that comes that comes in with the loss of a sibling is our identity. And that is something that oftentimes we don't think about. Sister or brother-ness, if you want to put it that way. I'm a sister, I'm a brother, and everything. That can be kind of hard to pin down because it is the relationship to other people that is the definition of that. And that can be really hard when that person dies. Sibling relationships are some of the longest relationships that we have in life. A comment that was made on Journeys Through Grief just a couple of weeks ago by someone was that I feel so lost after their sibling had died. That's not an uncommon comment that people have. It feels like I lost a part of myself. Why is that? Because a relationship is an anchor. It's an anchor in this world. It's an anchor for us with our identity. We run down the list of our identities and they're defined by relationships. And so when we lose that person dies who is the reason for that relationship, we can feel really lost. Several years ago in a grief seminar, a woman asked me after her brother died, am I still a sister? I can't answer that for her. That is a part of her identity. And that's one that she has to answer. I mean, I can define that in my own particular ways, but we as bereaved persons, when we lose that person to death, now we have to come up with that. And that can be really, really hard. We also might have a sense of responsibility, if you will, for that sibling. So let's talk about that in this manner. All of us are born in a particular order, and there's been a lot of research done on sibling birth order and what it does to us, for us, with us, however you want to look at that. But one of the things that's a part of that is a sense of protection. Older siblings may feel responsible for a younger one. When you're younger, you get sent out, and if you're the older one and you're going out with a younger brother or sister, well, you watch, you make sure, hold their hand as you cross the street, or you take care of them while you're out, go to the pool or whatever. Keep your sister safe, watch out over them. Those kinds of statements that get stated to us by parents make sense, but yet they get in much deeper within us. And we have a sense of protection that we often want to, that often gets really some deep roots within us. If we're the younger ones, maybe we look up to our sibling. Maybe we want to be like them. There's a part of them that really we really admire and stuff. And a lot of times that admiration is just simply because they are the older sibling. Whatever it may be, those kinds of things are external to us, but they really just come to us without any kind of filters that we have on them, and they just sort of get implanted in us. And the community makes those relationships and those responsibilities very apparent in the requests that they often make of the siblings. And so it can be really, really hard, really challenging to sort those kinds of things out as well. And it just, again, adds another layer to what we're experiencing. Familial role adjustments that we have. That is another layer that we have. We're going to think about and work through. Several years ago, there was a great movie called Ordinary People. I highly recommend it to watch that, to lift up some of these kinds of issues and things. It was an Academy Award winning movie. And it really is a movie about sibling loss and how the family gets out of balance. I have a colleague, Jennifer Nadeau, who in talking about families and when death comes along, uses the idea of a mobile. It's a mobile is an artwork there where things are balanced on wires and things. And when you take one piece off of that, the whole mobile falls off into another direction. It's not in balance anymore. And that's a great example and image for what happens when a person dies in a family, because the whole family gets out of tilt. Well, in ordinary people, the older son is the one who's died. And the older son is actually the golden child. He's well-liked, he's athletic, he's outgoing, he's charismatic. He's the one that everybody sort of looks up to. And in some ways, the family has sort of kind of placed their hopes and dreams on. Well, the older son dies before the movie ever begins. He dies in a boating accident. Dies in a boating accident where he and the younger son had been out together. The younger son is the main character, and through the movie, we're watching him go through his grief and doing some therapy and trying to find his way as he's living forward into his life. And in one of the most powerful scenes there, I remember the therapist, played by Judd Hirsch, who's talking to his client, this younger son, who is really struggling because he feels like he should have been the one who died. It's called survivor guilt. That maybe it was the wrong child who died, that the other one had everything else going on for him. And Judd Hirsch looks at him and says, maybe you were just stronger than him. What we see as we go on with this movie is these internal family dynamics and how they've been all upset, and how the son has to go about finding his own new way, and the older his parents who struggle with their relationships and what it means with their own grief with that, and the sense of abandonment that the younger son has, and that really powerful kind of thing that he was feeling that the wrong child died. It's not an uncommon experience. It can feel really, really hard and really discomforting for us if we're feeling it. We can hold that ourselves. Maybe the people outside of our family hold it. Maybe other members of our family hold that same sense. I don't know. But it points to a common element within sibling relationships that's really important to bring up here. And it's still another layer, and that's the ambiguity. The ambiguity that we have in sibling relationships. You know, it's a different experience to be children together, you know, less than 10, early teens, whatever, you know, adolescence and all. As we grow and get older together, the relationship changes, becomes a very different kind of thing. And I would ask you, did you become friends with your siblings? Did you become a different kind of friend and grow into a different kind of relationship with your sibling before they died? Most of us do. Many of us do. But that ambiguity and the sibling rivalry, that term that we've all heard, that's all leftover stuff, and it's buried down within us. When our sibling dies, it's going to bring it all up again. We thought we're done with it. We thought it was in the past. We thought it was behind us. But boy, it brings up all kinds of regrets and things with that ambiguity. We've got to come to terms with the childhood stuff that grief lifts up. That stuff that, you know, maybe was mistreatment, maybe was traumatic for us, or maybe it's just simply the way that we experienced it as a younger sibling with an older, or, you know, a child that was more liked in the family than us, whatever it may be. It brings up that sense of ambiguity. Therese Rando says this so very well. She says, sibling relationships are often marked by attachment as well as antagonism, caring as well as competition, and loyalty as well as lingering resentment. And that is just a powerful way to put this whole piece together here. and in these sibling relationships that are a part now of us that we have to grieve. It's got to be worked through. It's a difficult challenge. And sometimes we may resent our own selves for those changing roles that has to come in, and maybe resent ourselves or regret the fact that we ever felt that way, or maybe possibly feel again now. I don't know, but we have to work through that stuff and find ways to process that, and as the survivor, help our family and ourselves move forward. Another layer, fifth layer, that is mortality. Recently on somebody posted here in Journeys, I'm the last remaining member of my family. And what that means reminds me of what a friend of mine said several years ago after an older sibling died, was that there was now no one between them and the grave. And we may feel uncomfortable thinking about that, because boy, our brother or sister meant so much more to us than that. But that's a real deep part of what it means to have a sibling die, is that it brings our own sense of mortality up to us. I want to go back to that birth order again that I spoke about just a bit ago and everything. Rationally and expectedly, there's kind of an order of things to happen. Grandparents, parents, older siblings first. The older ones die first. That's the way we expect it to be. But as we know, it doesn't often happen that way, or it doesn't always happen that way. Getting out of order creates its own sense of problems. And what we have to do with that is to adjust our expectations. That's one of the things that I loved about the quote that we posted today from Cokie Roberts in talking about the death of her older sister, Barbara. She says, I had always assumed we'd occupy adjacent rockers on some front porch, either literally or figuratively. Now, one of those chairs would be empty. That's an adjustment that has to happen. She had a future that she was expecting still with them, with her sister Barbara. Maybe they're talking on the phone and sitting 1,500 miles apart, but they have those similar similar expectations for living out their lives in the same way. And the death of her older sister took that away from Cokie Roberts. That was a loss that she had to deal with, and that whole loss of that sense of that future, as well as what had been lost, that common past that she and her sister had held together. That's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of things to work through. And not all of these may be a part of your grief story with your sibling, and that's fine. Maybe some of them are. Whatever it is, they can make us feel really, really strange and give us a lot that we have to process. So how do you confront such matters? How do you confront these things when they come up, and the things that feel strange to you? That as you work on your grief and you manage that, what do you do? Put some of your thoughts in there. Here's the terms that we use in the grief world. We call it strengthening the continuing bonds that we have. What are those bonds? Those continuing bonds? They're the connections that you have with your sibling. They're your history that you have together. They're your relationship that you have with them. They are the way that you have lived out your relationship and experienced it and expressed it throughout your life together. So what to do with that? How do you strengthen those bonds? What kinds of things do you do? Well, here's some suggestions. Here's some very common things that I've heard people talk about. That's this question. How do you remember your brother or your sister around your home and in your life? You have photos of them? Maybe you've even gone through and found some other ones and put them up there, framed them, or just kept them somewhere so you see them often. That's a way to build your continuing bond. You remember them and you remember what was going on with when the photo was taken. Do you talk about your brother or your sister? Do you tell stories about them? Do you talk to them? That may sound a little strange, but it's a real common kind of thing. Whatever it may be, talking to them, getting their advice, yelling at them, whatever your relationship is, there's all kinds of ways that can be expressed and experienced. Do you include your brother or your sister in your activities? Do you remember their birthdays or special anniversaries? Do you hold a place at the table in your family gatherings? Just recently, we had a family gathering at our home, and we served what has come to be called Lynn's cheese potatoes. She used to make these special cheese potatoes that, when she died many years ago, we've been trying. We still haven't figured out what she did. They were pretty spectacular. And nobody, no matter how they've tried, even following her recipe, just haven't got them. And what we did, we started asking questions. Well, what do you think it is that she did? How was it? How was it that was there something she didn't put in her recipe? Was there something just about her? And so we started talking about who she was and some of the ways that she was with us. And she came in and was a part of our family gathering. It was a really special time, really special experience. Do you do that? Have you done that? That's called strengthening the bonds, the continuing bonds that you have with your brother or your sister. Do you have mementos around the house or in other places? Do you wear their clothing? Piece of jewelry? You have some household items around it. Is there something out of the kitchen or, that they used, or was there a tool or, a table or something that was from their home, their life? Was there something that they bought while they were on a vacation somewhere and brought back to you that holds, a connection with you? And do you have it displayed in the house? Did you find it when you were going through some other things and pull that out and put it out there? That's called continuing bonds. That's called building and strengthening your continuing bonds. Very normal kind of stuff. Do you live out important values that your brother or sister held? Do you volunteer at a place that was relevant to them? Did you pick up skills or abilities or hobbies maybe that they expressed and learn to become, and become proficient in some of those things? Did you feel the need to carry on their legacy in some way, such as mannerisms that they had? Do you find those coming out in you in your daily living? Maybe it's the way you move a hand, or maybe it's the turn of a phrase, or the phrasing that you have, or telling a well-remembered joke. All of these things are ways that you build those continuing bonds with your sibling. They're ways that you go on now and express this relationship that you have with them as it's still going on in your life today. And the more you do that, and the more intention that you do with that, the more way that you set yourself out and look for those things, or put the pictures out, or remember to speak about them at family gatherings and stuff, then that's what I'm talking about with intention. Then the more that you will be working on that, and you will be processing all that other stuff. Well, there's a lot here. There's a lot here that I've shared, and I invite you to return to this as you need. I invite you to send the link and share it with your family, because maybe you have another sibling who is struggling with the death of their brother or sister, that same person. I invite you also to be open about your journey through grief, because you will find some very important people along the way who will stand with you, who will listen to you, who will support you, as maybe it's tears, maybe it's anger, maybe it's silence, whatever it may be, that they'll be there for you. I want to thank each and every one of you who's joined us here, either live in this or in the future. We hope that you found something that is helpful here, and that as you finish this, that you feel a bit more strong, if you will, as you wrestle with your grief. Maybe you feel a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more room around you, whatever it may be. If you've got a feeling where you're feeling a little bit easier, that's a good thing. And I'm glad that you are. Return here as you need. My thanks as well, as always, to my colleague Jessica for monitoring the feed and the page and bringing those things to us. Follow us on Facebook so that we can be together in our journey through grief. And we are sending you peace as you grieve your loss.